Well, if you managed to stay up through the sluggish, sloppy, muddy dirt racing, you were treated to another classic finish tonight, one full of controversy. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove Late Night Bristol Dirt Race Review Edition. Second ever Food City Dirt Race held on Easter Sunday this year. Happy Easter to those of you who celebrate. And it certainly was a memorable one. We're gonna talk about the top finishers. We'll talk about the future of dirt racing a little bit. Should Bristol Dirt return next year? We'll discuss some of the controversies as well. We'll put this race on the Groovy gauge at the very end, but I wanna begin with the closing laps. It took a long time to get here, but in the closing laps, we had Tyler Reddick looking for his first career win, a guy who's led a ton of laps this season, being chased down by Chase Briscoe, who won stage 2 for a short period, looked to be in prime position to get the win if it was rain shortened, a guy who won his first race just a few weeks ago, who probably had the best car tonight. I think even Kyle Busch radioed at one point that he thought the 14 was the fastest car. I agree, he had the best car. Both Reddick and Briscoe have dirt racing backgrounds. It was great to see the final run of the race go mostly green, allowing for Briscoe to close the gap naturally and for the two of them to settle things one-on-one. Of course, you've probably seen the finish already. Things didn't work out really for either one of them. Kyle Busch, much like how he won in the Clash a couple of years ago, swooped in after the top two made contact. Kyle Busch gets his first career win of the season, but we're not talking about that just yet. We gotta talk about Chase Briscoe's failed slide job attempt in the final two corners. That's what it was. Slide jobs are very common in the dirt racing world, and occasionally they trickle over into the asphalt world of NASCAR. See Chicagoland 2018. And actually, that was also kind of a failed slide job. But unfortunately tonight at Dirt Bristol, we didn't see many slide jobs, at least not near the front of the field. One of the few true slide job attempts that television showed was actually Chase Briscoe earlier in the race. I'm not sure if I'm gonna have a replay of this, but earlier in the race, they showed this on TV. Chase Briscoe, racing for like sixth, I think, tried a slide job on Austin Dillon, didn't make it work and ended up forcing Dillon up over the cushion nearly into the wall. Remember, Ryan Blaney then swooped by both of them, so it didn't work out for Chase Briscoe. He failed at a slide job earlier in the race, and then again on the last lap tried to do the exact same thing and failed once again. This time though, he completely took Tyler Reddick out of contention, ruined Reddick's chances at his first career win. Also, of course, wrecked himself in the process. Kyle Busch swooping at the final second. What, they crossed the line something like this? Kyle Busch over Tyler Reddick. Reddick 360'd it, kept his foot in it, kept going, put that thing back into gear and almost scooted across the line before Kyle Busch got to him. As someone who picked Tyler Reddick coming into this weekend and was really excited to see him possibly get his first career win, I was devastated. I was heartbroken to see Kyle Busch edge him at the very end. It was a thrilling finish no matter how you slice it, but it was certainly controversial. In my opinion, Chase Briscoe gets 100% of the blame. He made the move and it failed, and he took out not only himself but the race leader. I know a week ago I criticized Ty Gibbs for getting out of the car after the race and throwing punches at Sam Mayer with his helmet still on. That was a total overreaction to what happened in that race at Martinsville last week. What we saw tonight between Tyler Reddick and Chase Briscoe was a total underreaction. There's a sweet spot in the middle, and it's not a narrow sweet. There's a pretty big gray area you can play within. Tyler Reddick tonight was way too nice in his post-race interview. He was blaming himself. I should have made better laps. I shouldn't have let him get that close to me in the first place. I could have done things better. Like, you got dumped. Straight up! I don't know much about Reddick and Briscoe's relationship. I'm sure they're cordial with each other. They might even be friends. I have no idea. So I understand he doesn't want to just pile on. I didn't expect Reddick to get out and start throwing punches. But then even when Briscoe came over, and I'll cut Reddick some slack, the microphones were there, the TV cameras were right on top of him. He doesn't want to say anything he's going to regret or that's going to get his sponsors in trouble. But even then, Briscoe comes over with a smile on his face. I'm sorry, buddy. And Reddick just let it go, like it was no big deal. And no, I'm sorry, this is a huge deal. Tyler Reddick looking for his first career Cup Series win, an automatic berth into the playoffs at the end of this season. That was taken away from him in an instant by Chase Briscoe's irresponsible last lap move. That's the thing. Briscoe, he's a good guy. I think he's a very nice driver. He comes across as a very humble, down-to-earth guy. But he drove in way over his head there on the last lap. And again, he tried a slide job earlier in the race and it failed then. I don't know why he thought it was a good idea to just bonsai it into 3 and 4 there. I understand it was really hard to pass tonight and that there was really no way to pass Reddick there without some sort of contact. But Briscoe said it himself. He knew he was going to spin himself out making that move, so why do it? Why even risk wrecking, Tyler Reddick's chances at a win? Like, what's the point of making a move that even you yourself admit wasn't going to work for yourself? Like, he lost his head in the moment, going for a win at Bristol Dirt. I understand it to an extent, but he has to own it. And Tyler Reddick shouldn't have let him off the hook the way he did. I didn't expect punches, I didn't expect shoving, but They were smiling afterwards. Like, what this... That's not a good thing. That's not a good image, in my opinion. If I was a fan of Tyler Reddick tonight, I'd be a little disappointed. I'd want to see a little more emotion afterwards. If I'm a fan of Chase Briscoe, obviously I'm disappointed because it was an irresponsible move. Both guys lost the race, so I'm disappointed regardless. But I don't know. I didn't love the reaction after the race. Like I said, Ty Gibbs last week was a total overreaction without question. Tyler Reddick tonight was a huge underreaction. We needed something in the middle there. I don't know. That's what I was hoping to see, at least as a fan. That's what I expected to see, and I was shocked we didn't get anywhere close to that. Kyle Busch, meanwhile, got the win. As he said afterwards, hey, it doesn't matter what you do to this track, he cannot be stopped at Bristol. Ironic, of course, considering a week ago he was one of the most outspoken drivers, sort of against Bristol being a dirt race. Unsurprisingly, of course, we talked about it earlier last week. But he gets the win tonight, and he ran up front all night long. He never really, I don't think he ever took the lead straight up until that final corner, but he was in the mix all night long, up inside the top 5. He certainly backed into this win. I know you Bowman fans want me to say it. So yeah, Kyle Busch backed into this win, sure, but as I said about Bowman's win earlier this year, he put himself in position to take advantage of someone else's negative situation. So Kyle Busch, congrats to him. He was impressive all night long. It's good to see the 18 car back in victory lane with M&M's, of course, in what's going to be their final season, of course. So congrats to Kyle Busch, congrats to Joe Gibbs Racing, second win of the year for Toyota as a manufacturer. Not much else to say about the finish. All 20 people still in the grandstands after this long, damp evening. I'm sure got a kick out of it. I know I did, watching at home on television. Now, let's talk about some of the other top finishers real quick. I do want to give out some shout outs. That's one of the charming aspects of this one and only dirt race, is that you get some interesting names in and around the top 10, like Michael McDowell finishing 8th. Brad Keselowski, they need some good runs, of course. He was up in the top 5 at the very end of this race. You got your typical dirt veterans, the Kyle Larsons, the Christopher Bells. Larson dominated stage 1, exactly what we'd expect of Kyle Larson at a dirt track, but of course these cars so different, so unique. This track itself very unique compared to any other dirt track in the country. Guys without dirt experience snuck up near the front as well. Daniel Suarez, they employed some strategy early in the race, but Suarez for the second year in a row was very fast here. Blaney, Bowman, Chase Elliott, they were around all night long. Justin Haley sneaks into the top 15 as well. I want to give a shout out to JJ Yaley. I saw him running 12th at one point on television tonight. Shout out to him and Rick Ware Racing. That's huge. A few drivers DNF. Denny Hamlin blew a motor. I saw he tweeted something indicated that dirt got in there, overheated, blew it up, whatever the case may be. He blew a motor. Kevin Harvick also had issues. He was overheating early on in this race, and that's the first big controversy outside of the finish I want to talk about. I wasn't at Bristol this weekend, but from what I heard, it rained a little bit about an hour before the green flag, which dampened the track, created some mud, some tacky situations, and that first 15-lap run, you saw several cars begin to overheat. Mud, dirt were caked on the front grills, the grill openings. Teams were allowed to play with the grill opening area, change the ventilation, allow for more air to get in around some of the clogged up dirt spots. After last year, we saw this issue. But for some reason, the SHR cars either didn't get the memo or thought what they had was good enough. But in those first few laps, Custer and Almirola both pit to get dirt off the grill under green. Kevin Harvick also faded and went a lap down because of overheating issues. So it did seem to mainly be an SHR issue. Other drivers and teams, of course, did have some dirt caking up on their grill openings and were complaining about overheating temperatures, but it was really those 3 SHR cars, not even Briscoe, who according to the broadcast was running a different vent system or a different grill opening. It was the 3 SHR cars that really struggled with overheating. So that was one controversy. Yeah, NASCAR probably could have done more to run the track in right before the green flag, especially knowing there was a little additional unexpected moisture beforehand. So that is on NASCAR, but it's also on SHR because they seem to be the only team that really struggled with that, at least early on. That put Harvick behind, but he actually DNF'd because he was caught up in a couple big wrecks. At one point, his right front was like pointed the exact wrong direction. It was at like a 45-degree angle. That's broke. Austin Dillon also finished 31st. I want to mention him. He ran up in the top 5. He was right there with his teammate Tyler Reddick towards the end, and then I don't know, lost power in the car and just stopped in the middle of the field. That could have been a huge issue. As it was, I think only Kurt Busch really got any major damage. So those are just a couple other finishers I wanted to mention real quick, but those are your top finishers from tonight's Bristol Dirt event. One of the other big controversies tonight happened at the end of stage 2 during a lengthy red flag for rain. Thankfully, this controversy eventually fizzled away because we did go back racing and the lineup was settled. But originally, Briscoe won stage 2. The field was frozen. Effectively, the race was red flagged immediately after they crossed the line. But then during the caution period, Briscoe pit for fuel because he had to, which meant, I guess, Kyle Busch theoretically was going to be the leader on the restart. But because the race was still under a red flag, which meant nobody could advance or lose positions, Briscoe was still to be scored as the race leader until the actual restart happened and they crossed the line. So all throughout that red flag, despite Briscoe having pit, there was confusion. Was Kyle Busch the leader because he stayed out? Like, Briscoe can't be the leader, he already pit, but the field's red flag, the field's frozen. People missed that part. Fox did a not so great job explaining it. Like, Darrell Waltrip first went on the air and explained the exact wrong thing. Then Mike Joy came in and read, like, from the rule book, the long legalese paragraph, and it still didn't make a whole lot of sense. They could have shortened that, I think, and just explained it very simply so that everyone at least watching at home knew what was going on. But even drivers and crew chiefs in the garage area didn't seem to know what was going on. It sounds like the rule was pretty black and white. People need to read up on it before the weekend begins. I understand confusion in the moment. You know, these rule books are basically the same every week. You might skip over some details, but you know, it sounds like that's largely on the teams. I think NASCAR was clear. They did not change things. The broadcast was a little unclear perhaps, and sure, it is a unique rule to this dirt race, so I understand people being a little confused in the moment. The communication could have been better. At the end of the day, this controversy turned out to be a non-controversy because the race went back green, Briscoe restarted in the back, Kyle Busch or whoever was the leader, so it really wasn't an issue at the end of the day, but for about an hour there during that red flag, gosh, felt like NASCAR social media was melting down. Nobody knew what the rule was, who was leading, who was in position to win. It was chaos, and NASCAR can do a better job communicating. I think TV for sure can do a better job communicating, and then the teams just gotta know the rules. Like, come on, that's your job. That's about it as far as specific incidents during tonight's race. I just want to talk about dirt racing and Bristol dirt more broadly for a moment before we put this thing on the Groovy gauge. As I said in my video a couple days ago, I'm glad that there's a dirt race on the NASCAR Cup schedule. The Cup schedule is so diverse. You got a bunch of road courses, you got pack racing, you got intermediates, you got short tracks, you got short ovals. I think it's great that there's a dirt track mixed in there. But is Bristol Motor Speedway the best dirt venue in the country? Absolutely not. I would rather see the NASCAR Cup Series race at a purpose-built dirt track. Probably Eldora Speedway, that might be the only one that makes sense. I thought tonight's race was pretty entertaining most of the evening, despite the on-again, off-again rain, the starting and stopping. For the most part, this was a racy track. It was hard to pass, absolutely, but there were multiple lanes, and mid-pack, there was a lot of jostling for position. You can make contact with these new cars without cutting a tire and ruining your race. I thought the product tonight, once they actually got going and were able to get into any sort of a rhythm, was better than last year and was actually decent. I actually thought it was pretty good racing throughout the evening. So I'd love to see a dirt track remain. I don't know if it'll be at Bristol in the future. You'll notice tonight, they did not do what they did last year during this race, which is announce mid-race that, hey, we're coming back next year, secure your tickets ahead of time. They didn't do that. They have not yet announced a 2023 Bristol dirt race. Take that how you will. That doesn't mean it's not gonna happen, but it means they're not maybe as committed to it now as they were a year ago. So there's the possibility of change coming. I still hope the Cup Series races on dirt, make some few more modifications to the cars, maybe get rid of the windshields and put something else in there for next year. I think you can race on dirt. The Cup Series cars proved tonight they can put on a decent, if not good, show on a dirt track if it's prepared properly and if the cars have the proper modifications put on them. So I don't want to see NASCAR abandon the dirt idea. I think it's a great testament to the sport, the drivers, and the cars that NASCAR can race at such a wide variety of racetracks. I'd like to see that continue, even if it's not on Bristol Motor Speedway. In fact, maybe preferably if it's not on Bristol Motor Speedway. That's my take. Now I want to put this thing on the Groovy gauge. This is a difficult race because unfortunately the weather got in the way. We had an hour and a half red flag in the middle of the race. We had another short 30-40 minute red flag towards the end. Might have even been longer than that. I just know I left to get Taco Bell briefly and managed to get back before they restarted. So this race had awful pacing. It was 250 laps. It felt like it took 200 laps to finally get into some sort of rhythm for the finish to start taking shape. Like, I'm glad we sat through that hour and a half red flag and we got back green in stage 3, because if the race had ended at the end of stage 2, I would have felt incomplete. I think the race had only been going for an hour and a half at that point, and while yes, Briscoe battling for the lead late was exciting and the broadcast treated it as exciting, it just didn't feel like a full race. It felt like things were just getting started. So I'm glad we saw this thing through to the end. NASCAR and Bristol Motor Speedway deserve a ton of credit for sticking it out. I know the fans who stayed behind and watched in person and those who stayed up to watch it on TV, I know they all greatly appreciate it. The end of this race had a little more pace to it, but between the red flags, all the lazy spins here and there, it was tough for this race to find its rhythm. So that's gonna hurt my score a little bit. It was very herky-jerky and occasionally a little sloppy. It was nothing like the Truck Series race at Knoxville, thank goodness. Oh, with the exception maybe of the last lap. I don't know, this is a tough one to score. If I could go back and watch it without the red flags, maybe it would change my score a little bit. For now, I'm gonna give it a 70%. It was a good race. I wouldn't say it was a great race. The lack of passing up front was certainly a negative. The progressive banking, I think, helped the top lane come in, which was great, made it a multi-groove track. but as a result, it also made it very difficult to pass on the inside of somebody. We saw Briscoe make it work a little bit at the end, working his way towards the lead, but as we saw at the end, the only way to try and beat the leader was to flat out wreck them. That's not good racing, so the track could still use some work, but overall, I thought tonight was a fairly good race. So I'm going to give it a 70%. Definitely deserves a positive score in my opinion, but share your thoughts down below. What kind of score would you give tonight's Bristol dirt race? I'm sure NASCAR and dirt racing will be a divisive subject for years to come. I do want to say this. It was great to hear Darrell Waltrip back in the booth once again. And for that brief period when they brought Larry McReynolds in as well during one of the red flags, that tickled my nostalgia bone a little bit. That was pretty cool to see. And I thought DW, he's a little older, and his last few years when he was with Fox, 2016, 2017, 2018, weren't his best years, I don't think. But he was decent tonight. It was good to hear him back in the booth once again. I thought TV did an okay job tonight. I didn't see much of the pre-race show. It sounds like they actually put some effort in and took it a little more seriously, which great. I love seeing the stage outside the speedway once again with Chris Myers, Jamie Mack, and Michael Waltrip there with fans walking by and standing in the back. I think that's great. More of that, please. So some positive gains for Fox this weekend. Just want to give them a small shout out. What I saw was pretty good. I think it's interesting that Dale Jr. is joining the booth next weekend. We got an NBC Fox crossover. Should be great. Just can't believe it's happening. Anyway, that's all I've got for this episode. Thank you all for watching. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We recap NASCAR races, we talk NASCAR news, rumors, and much, much more day in, day out here on Out of the Groove. And as always, a big thank you to my amazing Patreon supporters. I truly appreciate your support. We'll be back this week. Lots to talk about before Talladega. Thank you all so much for watching. I look forward to reading your responses after a long and sloppy Bristol dirt race. Have a good one, y'all. Happy Easter.